welcome to another episode of the Nutmeg Assist podcast. In this episode, we will be discussing one of the big news stories or the transfer stories of the past week, which is Carlo Ancelotti moving to Real Madrid from Everton. And we'll be discussing mainly on Everton in this pod. And I am Ritvik, the host as usual, and I am joined by my co-host Chris, who is an Everton season ticket holder and who is the right guest for this episode as well. So Chris, straight into it. Let's get straight into it. And my first question to you: what was your first reaction when you heard the news? Because I really found it surprising that Carlo actually went back to Real Madrid at this point.
Yeah, well, it all sort of happened so quick, didn't it? I mean, there was sort of murmurs, little rumours getting banded about, but journalism is what it is these days. You never quite know what to believe, so it all happened so quick. But I suppose my initial thoughts were, I was surprised, like you said, but not disappointed, if I'm being totally honest. I was more surprised at the fact that Real Madrid wanted him back, although it does make sense. When you think about Real Madrid and what's going on with that club at the moment and what's going on with Florentino Perez and the crazy house that he's sort of controlling over there, it does make Carlo Ancelotti does seem like a logical appointment for them. But from an Everton point of view, me personally, I wasn't too disappointed, and that might come as a bit of a shock, but I'll miss the profile of Carlo Ancelotti. I will miss the profile of Carlo Ancelotti being in charge and being the manager of Everton more than the actual manager. Having a manager that pedigree and prestige is fantastic with a club with a status such as ours at the moment. But ultimately, football identities and football matches are won on the pitch. And from what I saw in the second half of the season, was just a manager that didn't know what his best 11 was, didn't know what his best formation was, only seemed to have one plan when it came to trying to attempt to win a game. And the more and more I watched us play, the more and more I felt that maybe modern day football had passed this manager by.
And I mean, coming on to the next real question here, I mean, this probably is the best time for the announcement to happen right after the season. So you have a whole summer to probably choose a replacement and plan accordingly. But Chris, losing a name like Carlo Ancelotti, you said you are going to lose the name rather than the actual manager. So, I mean, it wasn't a very fun ride, to be honest, with Carlo Ancelotti for sure. You might agree with me on this point. You finished 10th behind the newly promoted Leeds United, who did really well under Marcelo Bielsa this season. But what do you think are the pros and cons of Carlo Ancelotti leaving? I mean, you always have two sides to the coin, and I think this particular move might also have. So what, in your opinion, are probably the downsides and also probably the upsides to this moment?
Yeah, I mean, you can come at this from a few angles, Rick, and like you said, there is pros and cons. Now, I think anyone that listens to this might be a little bit surprised by what I said just now about Ancelotti and maybe his style of management being a little bit dated. And people might say, look at his past achievements and maybe look at the squad that Everton have got and say, well, that's extremely harsh. But I just think his reputation as a manager masks his ability. I really do. And you've just hinted on yourself there. We finished 10th with Carlo Ancelotti. Now, let's take the profile of the manager away for a second and look at the facts. And we finished 10th. Now, that was lower than Ronald Koeman did. That was lower than Marco Silva did with his full season in charge. And that was lower than Sam Allardyce did. But for some reason, the things that I'm reading in the media at the back end of the season was that it was all sort of down to the club and the lack of quality or the lack of depth within the playing squad, which I agree with to a certain extent. But still, so-called lesser managers have achieved more with lesser squads and lesser players, in my opinion. So for me, that is what I was getting at there. Probably explained it a little bit more in depth when I was talking about him being a little, not, I don't want to say past it, because the circumstances of the club will dictate how successful you can be and how long it will take you to attain and achieve that success. To answer your question, whether it's a positive or the pros and the cons, or whether it's a negative, like you said again, there's two sides to every coin. Now, for me personally, it can only be a positive that he has gone, because, like you said, the timing is good. The timing, it's always better to lose a manager at the beginning or at the end of or when the season's just finished, as opposed to, say, halfway through a season or within the first 5 games of the season, because it gives Everton time to sit back, look at the situation and make a decision accordingly. Again, that's all hypothetical. We'll see what happens with that. And the fact that, as well, he's not been here long enough to consider it a loss, in my opinion. He's only been here 18 months. So, and from what I've seen in those 18 months, there was no sort of long-term plan. And now I'm speaking strictly now about the football side of things, the 11 players on the pitch and what they were sent out to do and how they were achieving what they sent out to do. There never seemed to be like a long-term plan in place. It always looked like we were just going from game to game, week to week. We looked poorly coached, especially the second half of the season now. I think when you look back at Everton's season this year, it's certainly a season of 2 halves. We were very good in the first half of the season. I think if you looked at our league position after Boxing Day, and coming into the new year, I think we were very happy. I think you could easily look back at it and say from an overall perspective that progression was being made. And I think it was. I would have to agree with that. But when a season finishes, you tend to look back at the season and think of what happened in the second half of the season as to what's going to happen next season, don't you? And I think there was definitely reason to be worried there, and it just seemed like we were poorly coached, I thought. And I think ultimately, when you look back at his reign, at the 18 months from when he took over to when he's left last week, have we really made any progress as a club? I'm not so sure. I think there were signs there of progression, but I think given what happened and the way it happened the last couple of weeks of the season, or certainly the last half, because I know the warning signs were there January, February. I know we had a little bit of a pick-up and we got some 1 or 2 good results, but overall the second half of the season for me represent what is happening now, and I don't really see how you can consider it to be a loss from a football perspective.
And I mean, you spoke about all those pros and cons in your opinion, Chris, but one major downside to Ancelotti leaving, in my opinion, is that with the name that he has, he brings in or he attracts certain quality players. I mean, I don't think James joins Everton if not for Ancelotti. I don't think Alan joins Everton if not for Ancelotti. So you have that particular aspect as a downside, although I don't think that's going to be too big of a miss. But in terms of the positives, I definitely agree with you there when you said it's probably a bit outdated. Not probably as bad as Jose Mourinho's Tottenham was, but probably somewhere very similar in my opinion. So I kind of felt watching Everton in a lot of games that, I mean, you completely looked, I don't know, probably like a very early 2010s team or you know, kind of from that era in a lot of games. Not really good in possession. Definitely you're not a good pressing team either. We have the numbers for that, but we'll come to discussing that later. But I think these particular factors are probably positive for you to take. And I really think that bringing in a young manager, and probably he doesn't have to be young, but bringing in the right manager now is the biggest challenge or the biggest prize that you can hit at Everton. And Ancelotti leaving at this stage is probably, in my opinion, the best thing for Everton as a football club. And this actually brings me to the third topic today, Chris, or the third subtopic, which is what next for Everton, and who do you think is probably going to be the ideal candidate?
It's a good question. It's a question that's been obviously going around in my head for the last couple of days. And to be honest, I don't think I've probably got more names on a list of who I don't want to take the job as opposed to who I want to take the job. I just want the right fit. It's all right looking around now in football and saying I want that person. Football fans and journalists tend to sort of just want the most high-profile name. But as we've just alluded to there, and as we've just discussed, the manager with the highest profile doesn't necessarily equal the manager who is the best fit for that particular club at that particular time. And for me, I just want Everton now to pick. How do I word this the right way? It needs to be the right fit for the club now. They need to help. They've been presented with a really good opportunity here to go and create an identity. They've been presented with a really good opportunity, not to reset, but to sort of put a structure in place on what they want to achieve, not only in the short term, but the long term. Because I always got the feeling with Carlo Ancelotti, everything was about the short term. It always felt like he was a bit... I mean, I can only go off the rumours that I've heard about who we were trying to achieve in the transfer market this summer and who we were trying to achieve in January. Everything was about getting players in right now who might have been able to give us something that we didn't have. And I'll go into a bit more detail on that, Rick. I mean, I believe that Ancelotti wanted Sami Khedira to join Everton in January. Now, again, when you want to push all the data to one side, you want to push reputations to one side, he's probably better than what we had in terms of quality, or he's probably achieved more as a player than what any of our players have achieved. And I believe that the deal only fell through because of the financial aspect of the deal. But is he a player that really can take Everton to the next level? Is he a player that can come in, improve the team, and then take us and allow us to build that team around him, or allow us to put the components next to him to push us on for another year or 2 years or 3 years? I would say absolutely not. I don't know about yourself. Again, I heard rumours that we'd approached Real Madrid to possibly take in Gareth Bale on loan next season, like Tottenham did this season. Now, for me, that's just very short-sighted. It really is short-sighted, and I don't believe a club with a status as ours, which, let's be honest, the league table doesn't lie. We finished 10th, so we're a mid-table Premier League club. Can we afford to be going out and getting the Iscos, who again we were linked with, the Gareth Bales, the Sami Khediras, or basically anyone that Carlo Ancelotti is used to working with that is past their peak and probably won't get any better than what they can offer, or won't be able to offer us anything in the future than what they can offer us right now? I don't believe we can. Don't get me wrong, it might raise the profile of the club, but for me that's very short-sighted, and it comes with a very sort of, I want success now, or I want the profile of a club to be raised now to keep it to go hand in hand with my own profile. And I think that is where the Carlo Ancelotti aspect and the Everton aspect didn't really go hand in hand. So Everton's next manager has to be someone, like you said there, it doesn't necessarily have to be a young manager, because young managers are not necessarily more hungry than an older manager. But it has to be a manager who knows exactly what he wants, and he knows exactly how he wants to go about it. He knows how to get that. He can't just come into the club and decide, right, this is what we're going to do now for the next couple of months. This is what we're going to do after that. He's got to come in with a long-term plan, but he's got to have goals in the meantime as to how to get there. So, I mean, Everton are going to improve in one transfer window. I mean, we've spoke previously in other podcasts. We both believe that we had a very good transfer window last year. We've got to now build on that again. So, again, if I had to pick one specific name who I would love to see take control of the club, that would be Ralf Rangnick. I know he's been on record as saying he wants to be a head coach again, as opposed to a director of football. Now, he's not young, but he would certainly have a point to prove. he'd come with a project in mind. He'd come with an idea in mind. Given, and I don't think that's debatable, given what we've seen happen at Leipzig and Salzburg and the clubs that he's oversaw in the Red Bull, with the Red Bull philosophy over the last 5 to 6 years. And I don't know if Everton will appoint him or any kind of Premier League club will appoint him, given the control that he would want in a football club.
That's actually, again, a fair point. I'm not really sure if Ralf Rangnick will be looked at by Everton in any sort. But I've been hearing rumors about Nuno Espirito Santo taking over since he's left Wolves. But another couple of names that I probably might look at is Graham Potter, who I think who I seem to rate quite highly. I think he is one of the main reasons why Brighton are playing the way they are. I definitely think they're like very unlucky in terms of finishing. If their shooting was probably a bit more better, I think they would have been like further up the table. He is tactically solid as well, Potter. So that would be a really good appointment. And he could probably work really well with Marcel Brands and form a really, really nice structure way of handling things at the club, and you probably can afford to give him a long-term project, and I think that might be a very good fit, although I'm not really sure if that will happen. I've also heard shouts for Chris Wilder, but I'm not really sure if that is the greatest appointment that you can make. But yeah, these are probably the two names I've been hearing a lot along with Nuno. But personally, I would probably go for Graham Potter if I were Everton. I would try to get him. I know the Spurs might also probably have a look at him, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, Graham Potter. I still think he needs more time. Graham Potter at Brighton. I would like him to see. I'd like to see him stay at Brighton. If I'm honest, don't get me wrong. I agree with everything what he's saying about him. I've seen some of the numbers that reflect Brighton's season from a statistical point of view, and I think the best way to describe them as a team is that they're well coached and they're certainly on the right track. But ultimately, they finished 16th as well. Okay, now I know the league position doesn't always tell the full story, but they remind me a little bit of Roberto Martinez's Wigan team when I watch them play. They look well coached. They look attractive to watch. He has a philosophy of what he wants to achieve, but they're always going to be there and thereabouts. And I think he needs to stay there a little bit longer. Not necessarily to the same amount of time that Martinez stayed at Wigan, or for example Eddie Howe staying at Bournemouth, to the point that he actually regresses them as a team. But I still think I'm still not sold on him as a manager at this stage. I'd like to see what he does I'd like to see this team or this specific set of players continue performing to the numbers that they have shown this year, to show that it's not just a lack of quality from his coaching perspective. I still think he needs to show that Brighton can finish a lot higher than 16th, or at least compete in the top half of the league. And I know people can always throw he hasn't got that quality. Well, part of management is manoeuvring in the transfer market as well, and part of management is also trying to get that little bit more out of a set of players, or maybe switching a system around at specific times to get those extra 5, 10, 15 points a season. And I still think it would be better for him as well to stay another year. In relation to Nuno Santo, I don't think it would be a bad choice at all to see him take control of the club. I'd be more than happy to see him come and take control of Everton. I would be happy with that. Definitely compared to some of the other names like the Claudio Ranieris and another one that I've seen Pirlo's name mentioned. I've seen Frank Lampard's name mentioned. Names like that, I think he would be more than capable of doing a very good job at Everton and would represent everything that I personally would like to see an Everton manager show. I would like to see tactically flexible, but also have the same principles and core ideas in place for no matter what system he has or he goes with. And plus as well, I've seen a lot on social media with a little bit of negativity regarding Wolves' season. Now, I think that's a little bit harsh on him. I think if you look at the circumstances of how and why Wolves' season went the way it did, they lost Diego Jota, as you know, went to Liverpool. Fantastic footballer, certainly up and coming anyway. Can only get better. They lost Raul Jimenez, I think, in November. And if you look at the league position and the way that they were playing before they lost them, I think it's fair to say that injury certainly had a major impact on their season and certainly the way they played as a football team as well. I think they went to the quarterfinals of the Europa League the season before, and obviously because of the pandemic, they went deep. I think their season finished in the second week of August or the first week of August, when the Premier League season started in the first week of September. So they didn't really get much rest there, and the fact that they did play a lot of games the season before because they went far in the Europa League, that would have had some kind of bearing, especially given the way the fixture list was set out this season. And the fact that they finished 13th in the league, and people are criticising, I think it was 13th, wasn't it? I don't know if that off the top of my head. But the fact that they're finishing 13th in the league shows what a high standard he's actually set. Because Wolves haven't been in the Premier League that long now. So, I would be happy to see, Santo take over. Or I certainly wouldn't be disappointed to see him take over. If you compare him to some of the managerial names that have been mentioned. And also, Rithwick, as well, just before we go on to the last point, I think people are underestimating, going back to the initial question that you asked before about whether this is a positive thing or a negative thing for Everton. I think people are underestimating the financial aspect of Ancelotti leaving Everton as well, because I think from a financial perspective, it can only be considered positive because we took him on in December before the pandemic. This was pre-COVID. We took him on an 11 million a year deal, which is an absolutely astronomical amount of money for a club like us. And don't get me wrong, I know we're traditionally known to pay our managers big wages anyway. We took him on that on a 4.5 year deal. Okay, so he still has 3 years at this stage. This time last week, he still has 3 years left on that deal. And given the compensation packages that they've had to pay to Roberto Martinez, Ronald Koeman, Marco Silva, Sam Allardyce, I actually think from a financial perspective, Carlo Ancelotti was unsackable at Everton. I really do. It didn't matter how bad things got on the football pitch. I actually think Everton would have actually struggled to sack him if things did continue in the way that they did the second half of last season, which really backed us into a corner financially, I thought. So I didn't really see Everton putting up too much of a fight about him leaving. And I know it's hard to put up a fight against Real Madrid, because Real Madrid is Real Madrid at the end of the day. You don't blame any manager going to that club. No matter what's going on at the minute, there's still maybe the biggest club in world football. And any manager would certainly be interested in managing them. But I think financially it really, really could help Everton going forward.
Interesting to hear that. So we'll move on to the last point, though. I think we've probably dragged a bit, but we'll move on to the last point quickly. And that's about Everton's possible summer dealings. And I think one area which you need to address is definitely the attacking department. I know Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored 16 goals this season. That's the highest goals assist any Everton player has from the squad. Yeah. But if you look at the goals plus assists, the non-penalty goals and assists per 90, James Rodriguez still stands out on top. And I think he's going to probably leave in the summer. Gylfi Sigurdsson also is somewhere, roaming around at the top, which might seem good, but I don't think it's really a great sign, because I don't think he should be starting as much.
No.
Richarlison hasn't really lived up to the expectation. Before the season started, I remember Ancelotti saying that Richarlison might probably hit the 30 goal mark, which I think he is far away from. So this is an area which you need to improve because the expected goal difference puts you 11th in the league table. And you look at the expected goals as well as the expected goals against. If you look at both these metrics as well, you are somewhere 11th or 10th and somewhere in that particular area. So this basically doesn't put you in a really good light. So that is one area where you need to massively improve, in my opinion. So what do you think are Everton's plans for the summer, Chris?
To be honest, I don't know. We can't. It's too early to say until we know what manager takes over and what type. And obviously, once that manager takes over, we'll be able to associate what kind of plans he is likely to have. I mean, in the areas that I want to see us improve, I'm not going to go into positions because, again, I still feel Everton's team is average. I think there's a lack of quality, lack of depth there across all the areas of the pitch. And I think there's a fair. You could go through every position on that football pitch and say, oh well, yeah, you could improve on that. For me, I think whoever they buy, they need to have an injection of pace in a team. I think they need to have some solidarity in the centre of the field as well as an attacking threat coming from the centre of the field as well. I still feel that there needs to be some kind of replacement or alternative option to Seamus Coleman at right back. And then as well, you could look at the goalkeeper and the centre halves and say, well, maybe there's a little bit of improvement there, but I don't think they will be prioritised. I think it comes down to what's the priority, Rick, and I really don't know what you can consider a priority at the moment until the new manager comes in. If Carlo Ancelotti would have stayed in charge, again, this is another reason. This is one of the other frustrating point from his time as manager is that you can't say, oh, we need to improve that area or that area until you know what kind of formation was his plan A, and he never really seemed to have a set formation. He changed system quite a lot. He changed the principles of play quite a lot as well. So you never knew what you never knew what you were going to get from one week to the next with Everton. And I think that was, from a fan point of view, and for me specifically, who is the reverse as a football fan, likes to know what to expect or what a team is trying to achieve. That was really difficult. So your question is a really good question because, as well as it being a question, it sort of underlines some of the issues that Everton have got at the moment. You can't really identify what area to improve because you don't know what we're planning on, what the plan is.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's probably too early in the transfer market right now, and yeah, you probably might need to wait till the end of the Euros to get at least a decent picture. Although some clubs are trying to do early business. We've seen Aston Villa buy Emi Buendia. Leicester are probably on the end of getting Somare and also Edard. So I think some clubs are probably looking to do some business quite early and get the players well ready for pre-season. But yeah, obviously you still have loads of time because the window hasn't even opened yet. So that's fair. That's fair, Chris. And this probably brings us to the end of this episode. But just before going out, Chris, I know this is still really early, but just a prediction on who you might land as the manager and where you probably might end finishing next season.
Okay.
Just a random prediction.
Okay, I would. Okay then, if given the economic climate of football at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised that the manager that we get isn't from another. It'll be a free agent. It won't be from another team. So I can't see us going down the David Moyes or Graham Potter route just because of the financial aspect involved of trying to get them from a club. So if I had to make a prediction, I would be going down the route of Santo, maybe Fonseca. Someone of that ilk, someone of that. I can't see it being a Chris Wilder. I can't see them risking that at the moment. And I'm not knocking Chris Wilder as a manager. I think he had a very good first season with Sheffield. First season in the Premiership is Sheffield United manager. I think last season they were really hindered, given the way that they were one of the teams that were sort of really affected by the fixture list. In terms of the way we're going to finish next season, Rick, I would expect us to finish the same at the moment. Again, Everton are a team at the moment with a squad of players that, as proven this season, we are capable of competing for 5th, 6th, 7th place. But given one or two moments here or there, we could equally finish 12th, 13th, 14th. I think we're in that bracket of teams. So I think we finish where we deserve to finish this season. If we had to play the season again with the same squad of players, I would expect us to finish 9th, 10th, 11th.
Interesting. But at least you won, but at least you won the Merseyside Trophy this season.
It wasn't difficult, was it? So hopefully we get a bit of a challenge at Anfield this season. I've never seen a one-sided derby at Anfield so much in my life.
I mean, even Fulham comes and defeats you, it's not a big problem for Everton.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of this episode. Once again, Chris, thank you so much for giving us your insight on Everton, the club that you love, the club that you've been supporting.
Yeah, I had to rein it in a bit, mate. I nearly went off on a passionate tangent at one point and just started going into all sorts. But I did have to rein it in a bit. But I think if I had to end the show with one kind of summarization or sort of generalization of what we've discussed, I think it's very important. I think it's very important to watch Everton on why they appoint the next manager and the process they follow to appoint him. I think that will be very, very important on how successful they can be at the club, on why they appoint him and how they appoint him and the process they follow.
Yeah, sounds fair. So, this is the end of this episode 86. Thank you so much once again to all our listeners for tuning in. And from the next episode onwards, you will be hearing Euro previews, reviews, probably Copa America as well if the tournament gets held. There are controversies regarding the tournament, so we are not pretty sure if the tournament will go on. So we'll definitely be hearing a lot of Euro related pods coming up. So until the next one, thank you once again and bye bye.